Hey everyone, I'm Michelle Mays. I'm the clinical director at the Center for Relational Recovery and Partner Hope. And I'm back to talk to you guys about all things related to betrayal trauma. So, the topic I want to talk about today is I want to talk about what happens when we are in a relationship with somebody who we have found out, right, through the process of discovery, we found out that they have either been cheating or that they're dealing with a sex addiction. But in our relationship with them, they are not being sexual with us. All right, so a lot of partners have this story, and not everyone does, but there's a whole group of partners who have this story of my partner is not sexual with me, but come to find out they are being sexual either with pornography or outside of the relationship in some way. And that, of course, creates a ton of confusion because it feels like I've had a lot of partners say to me, I thought my spouse was just not very sexual. You know, I thought they were maybe asexual. I thought they were maybe, there was something going on for them but I thought they were completely shut down sexually. And then I find out that they've had this whole second life going on that has been a secret where they've been very sexual. And now I don't know what that means. And of course, the question always then lands back with, well, they were sexual with other people or they were sexual with pornography use. So is there something wrong with me, right? Is there something going on with me that has caused them to not want to be sexual with me? So of course it always comes back to that question, right? So what I want to look at today is I want to give you 4 different scenarios, 4 different reasons why somebody can be in a relationship and not be sexual in the relationship, but be sexual outside of the relationship. This is in no way a comprehensive list. Let me just say that at the beginning, because there's tons of things that can go on for people, right? But these are 4 common patterns that I see show up a lot for betrayed partners and their relationships. And so I thought it's worth talking about these 4 and taking a look at them together, okay? So the first one we're going to start with is when the cheating partner has an avoidant attachment style, and we'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. When they have an avoidant attachment style, it can sometimes lend itself, it can be a factor in how they then engage their own sexuality and where they engage their own sexuality. So, coming back to attachment style real quick. What we know is everybody has an attachment style. We don't choose our attachment style, right? Our attachment style is something that is formed when we are babies and toddlers, and it has to do with how we attach to our caregivers. And there are securely attached individuals. It's about 50% of the population. And then there are insecurely attached individuals. And insecurely attached individuals can either be insecurely attached in a way that moves them toward anxiousness. They're anxiously attached, which means they tend to be people who upregulate into hyperarousal when they experience threat, and then pursue relationship and pursue connection to try to manage the dysregulation that they're feeling. That's one form, right? The second form of insecure attachment is avoidant attachment. And people who are avoidantly attached tend to downregulate when they experience threat. So they tend to go into more of a hypo-aroused state where they withdraw, they shut down, they pull away, they go numb in an effort to stay safe when they feel some sort of threat, okay? So these are the different attachment styles. And sometimes when someone has an avoidant attachment style, what that will lend itself to them for them in terms of their sexuality is they will at times look for places to be sexual that don't require them to move close in and be close in with another person. For somebody who is avoidantly attached, being close often feels risky and sometimes threatening and dangerous. Right? Being close can bring about this feeling of, I'm going to get in trouble, right? It's going to go badly. There's going to be conflict if I move close. So I don't want any of that because that all makes me very distressed inside. So I'm going to pull away and I'm going to stay unengaged. I'm going to stay distant. I'm going to stay at a safe distance for me. So if that's your way of sort of coping and doing relationships, then you would imagine that sexuality would sort of follow in that same pattern for the person. And so that means that sometimes when they're engaging sexually, they're going to find pornography and using pornography more attractive at times than being with a partner, because with pornography, it's not risky, right? You're not going to get in trouble. There's not going to be conflict. It's not going to create internal distress for you, right? So you can be sexual in whatever way feels good to you, and it doesn't carry that interpersonal risk that relationships carry for somebody who's avoidantly attached. Same with, often what I see is my clients who have an avoidant attachment style. When I look at what they're drawn to, like if they're dealing with a sexual addiction, if I'm looking at what they're drawn to in their sexual addiction, often I will see a pattern of either pornography use or some form of paid sex, or sometimes anonymous sex, right? Anonymous sex with random people. I don't often, I do see it occasionally, right? Everything goes on under the sun, right? But I see those patterns more often for people who are avoidantly attached than I see patterns of somebody who's avoidant having serial affairs or having highly emotional relationships with people. Because again, their attachment style lends itself more to sexuality that is removed from relationship and at a distance from relationship because that feels safer. So if you have a partner who's been being sexual outside of the relationship but avoiding sex inside the relationship, that may have something to do with their attachment style and what they feel when they get close, both relationally and emotionally, as well as sexually. So that can be one form that takes when somebody is avoiding sex outside of the relationship. Okay, that was number one. Number two, the second thing is, and I think this is true especially for those of us who came of age during the time when computers and iPhones blossomed and we had access to porn everywhere and screens. We were just now in front of screens constantly, okay? So the second one has to do with people who were raised on pornography and who were raised on screens. And, there's lots that can be said about the way that pornography can impact sexual functioning and all of those kinds of things. We're not going to get into that today. What I want us to think about is the way that being in front of a screen and being in front of pornography can stunt a person developmentally. So I'm going to use a very old-fashioned word here, okay? So I want us to think about the phases and stages of courtship that happen, right? Super old-fashioned word. But what we're actually talking about when we're talking about courtship is the process of going from noticing somebody. So we notice somebody and we think, they're interesting, to all the way to developing a relationship with them and a long-term relationship with them. That's a process. And there are all kinds of steps involved in this process, right? You have to go from noticing somebody to talking to them, to flirting with them, to getting to know them, to starting to be sexual or physical with them. You have all these steps in the process to get from here to here. So often for people who were raised on pornography, of course, pornography, there's no plot development in pornography, and courtship is plot development. If we want to think about it that way, relationships are plot development, right? They are this unfolding process that is happening. So in pornography, there's none of that, obviously, right? There's no relationship, there's no risk, right? You don't have to show up and talk to somebody and see what happens. You don't have to flirt with somebody and see if they flirt back. You don't have to risk vulnerability and see if they meet you with vulnerability back. You don't have to do all of those stages that are involved in learning how to develop relationships with people. So if somebody has grown up on pornography and then grown up gaming and in front of screens, and because of all that, they've had limited exposure, especially during their adolescence from like 12 to 24, let's say, big spread there, right? But during all those really developmentally important years, and they're developmentally important for learning how to do relationships, if they're in front of a screen all that time, if they're in front of pornography all that time, they're not going to have learned how to do that. So they may have developmental hurdles, marked benchmarks that they didn't really meet in their development as an adult in terms of learning how to develop relationships and then integrate sexuality and relationships, right? So if you're in front of porn doesn't integrate sexuality into relationships. There's no integration of the emotional and relational aspects of something with sexuality. So sexuality then can sort of stay over here in its own box, separate from relationships and separate from emotional intimacy with another person. So if you never learned how to do that very well, and if sexuality has sort of always been over here in a separate box, then you might be in a relationship as an adult and not really know how to bring your sexuality to that relationship. You might not know how to do what's required to sustain a long-term relationship sexually and emotionally with your partner. And if that then proves really challenging for you, you don't feel like you're successful at it, you don't feel like you know how to do it, it causes anxiety for you when you turn towards your partner and move toward them. It's much more anxiety inducing than just going and sitting in front of pornography would be, or going out and paying for sex, or going out and hooking up with a stranger that you never have to see again. Then you can easily gravitate toward moving your sexuality in those directions rather than moving it toward your relationship. So that is another thing that can happen for people, and another reason why sometimes you'll have somebody acting out or cheating outside of a relationship, but avoiding sex or having limited sex within their relationship. All right, reason number three. Reason number three has to do with splitting parts of your sexual self. So I want us to just think a minute about the fact that all of us have a sexual story, right? We did not just land in our adult selves with a fully formed sexuality. So from the time that we are born, we are learning different things, we're being taught different things, we're having different experiences about our bodies, about our sexuality, about who we are, and all of that, everything that's coming in from our parents, from our peers, from school, from religion, everything that's coming in from the culture at large, right? From our background, everything that's coming in is shaping our sexuality and shaping what we understand about ourselves, what we understand about others, what we are aroused by, what we find attractive, what we believe. All of that is being shaped. So every person, in the same way that everybody has a story in general, right? Everybody has a story about how they came to be who they are today, right? Everybody also has a sexual story. So everybody has a sexual story about how they came to be who they are today. So what I have seen happen for some people is that if you grew up in a household that in some way either gave you no information about sex, which can be its own form of a negative sex message, or there were shaming messages about sex, or there was conflict between the adults about sex, whatever it might be, if you grew up in a household like that, then it can shape your sexuality so that you have questions or you have parts of your sexuality that you now have shame attached to. And when we have shame attached to our sexuality in some way, that can then limit us from being able to share who we are with our partner and to share ourselves authentically with our partner. So let me give you an example of this. Like let's say somebody grows up in a house, they're a boy in a house with mom and dad, and they regularly hear mom and dad fight about sexuality. They're fighting about sex. They can hear it, mom and dad try to hide it, but we all know how much little kids hear. And so they hear it anyway. And what they hear from mom is mom talking to dad about how she doesn't like sex with dad. She doesn't want him to be sexual with her. Maybe she's upset about an affair he's had. There's all this conflict, and mom is hurt by dad or angry at dad, and dad is angry at mom. And the boy in the house that's growing up there, the message that that boy can take away is, well, I'm also male, and everything I hear from mom about dad and sex is bad. So I wonder if that means my sexuality is bad too. That I'm going to grow up to be a man who, if I am sexual, if I'm fully sexual and in my sexuality, I'm going to be bad too, or I'm going to hurt people too. So there can be all this confusion around what is being heard about sex. So let's say this little boy grows up, becomes an adult, gets married, is in a relationship and all of that. And yet this shame is followed him and attached to his sexuality. And now what he believes is that if he brought all of who he was to his partner would be just as angry or disgusted with him as he saw his mom be with his dad. So now what he does is he goes out and he finds other people to be sexual with, where there isn't so much risk, right? Because even though he's doing something very hurtful to his spouse is still the most important person to him. And anytime whoever is most important to us, that's the person who is the most risky for us, right? So he doesn't want to bring who he is to his spouse, so he takes it outside the relationship. And he has sex with people outside the relationship and either avoids it within the relationship, or he sort of splits his sexuality and he only shows parts of himself to his spouse, and he shows the other parts of himself to other partners or paid sex workers or whatever else he's doing. So that's just an example of what can happen. A million things can happen, right? Again, everybody has a sexual story. But one of the things that can happen for people is that they can take parts of themselves that they feel shame about, where they have shame around their sexuality in some way, and they feel like if they were to show this part of themselves to their partner, that they would not be accepted, that it would be very risky. And they can take that part and take it outside the relationship and act it out. Okay, so that is number 3. Third reason why sometimes people are avoiding sex within their relationship but acting out sex outside of their relationship. Okay, so let's talk about the 4th reason. So the 4th thing that can happen for people is they can have experienced some sort of childhood trauma. So they can have sexual abuse or emotional abuse in their past that has in some way shaped their experience of sexuality, their understanding of sex and who they are. And then when they come into a relationship and are trying to be sexual in a relationship, they are not able to do it. It brings them close to the original feelings, feelings from the original trauma. So it brings them into proximity and into contact with the feelings that they experienced as a child in some way, and they don't want to re-experience that. They don't want to feel those feelings. So if you think about the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, one of the symptoms of that is avoidance, that the person avoids situations that remind them of the trauma. So if you have sexual trauma, then the situation that you are avoiding can be sex. You can be avoiding sex or certain kinds of sex, certain sexual acts, certain sexual things that in some way bring you back into contact with the trauma and the traumatic feelings that you felt around that. So then you have a pattern where you're being avoidant, and you're being avoidant because you're trying to avoid the feelings associated with it. Often when I see somebody who's avoidant because of trauma, I think they're often trying to avoid the emotion of panic or of terror, right? That it's going to be overwhelming for them to re-experience this if they move toward being sexual, and so they just avoid being sexual altogether. So when there's this kind of trauma, sometimes people will avoid sex within their relationship, and they'll just be kind of a sexless relationship. And they also avoid sex outside of the relationship. They just don't have sex, period. They avoid sex because sex in some form is the issue for them. or they will figure out, areas that they can be active within sexually, and they may act those out outside of the relationship in some way, while avoiding sex within the relationship. So that's the fourth reason, is having to do with childhood sexual trauma of some sort. So what does this mean for you as a betrayed partner? So the thing that I want you to think about here is, as we've kind of gone through these four things, is to notice that none of this is about you, right? This has to do with who your partner is sexually and their sexual story, like what happened to them as a child and through their sexual development, and what were they exposed to and how did it impact them and what did they learn? Like, this has to do with them and the things that have happened to them. So because of the dynamic of sex being avoided within the relationship, most betrayed partners who've experienced this have an enormous wound around feeling sexually rejected. They feel like their partner does not want them. And of course, that then attaches right to our deep, deep attachment need to be acceptable, right? To matter, to be loved, to be found worthy. And so these partners often have this enormous wound around feeling sexually worthy of their partner who has been avoiding them, depriving of sexuality, but then acting it out outside of the relationship in some way. So there can be enormous wounding for the betrayed partner around this. And then, of course, that leads to all those questions about, am I really not sexually worthy? Like, is there something really wrong with me? Am I not desirable? Am I not beautiful enough? Am I not, the list goes on and on and on, right? So, of course, this dynamic can bring all of that up. What I hope by just kind of going over these four different things that can happen, and again, there are many more, right? Everybody's unique and everybody has their own story. I hope that just by going over these, that it helps those of you who are in this kind of relationship to be able to understand, oh, okay, this really, really does have to do with my partner and who my partner is and their sexual story and what has happened to them. And it really isn't ultimately about me. So I was talking with someone, I was on our Braving Hope coaching call last night, and this topic was coming up, which is why I'm doing a video about it today, because it's on my mind from that. But it was interesting because I think, there's this grappling that happens for people who have had this kind of experience in their relationship. They're grappling with the cruelty of the experience and this question about, is my partner being deliberately cruel to me? Is my partner deliberately withholding sex from me in some way? And that question comes up, right? And there's curiosity about it and there's worry about it. And so I think what I want to validate is that if you are a betrayed partner and you've been in a relationship with somebody who has avoided sex with you and it has felt cruel, that there is a piece where it's going to feel cruel, because it feels cruel to be in a relationship where you've agreed together that you're going to be together in a romantic, sexual, long-term relationship with one another, and then your partner all of a sudden is not available sexually, and that goes on and on and on, right? They're not available sexually for a long time, or maybe for years and months. That can create all kinds of deprivation for you as a betrayed partner, and it can start to feel cruel, right? That in being deprived of this, of physical touch and physical affection and sexual pleasure with your partner, that there's cruelty in that. So I just want to validate that that can feel that way, absolutely. However, I also want to kind of say out of the other side of my mouth that, as you've seen, as we've gone through these four things, most of the time your partner is not being deliberately cruel. Now, there can be the occasional person who has all kinds of other things going on who is, but most of the time your partner's not being deliberately cruel. They're not being calculating about this. This is a part of them, their sexual story, and it's a coping strategy and a survival strategy that they have developed, and that's what they are doing. They are coping, right? They are coping with it in a way that causes a lot of harm and hurt to you and a lot of harm and hurt to them. But that's usually what they are doing, and it doesn't have to do with them wanting to deliberately punish you or withhold from you or be cruel to you. So I just want to say that I think it's important to be able to hold that it can feel cruel separate from my partners being deliberately cruel to me. And I also hope that in looking at this, you'll start to see, oh, okay, if this has been the pattern in our relationship, and if we're still together, so this is for those of you who may be trying to repair things with your partner, then we've got to get some help around this, right? We've got to really understand, we've got to dive in and unpack, like, what's gone on here? Why has it been this way? What are the driving forces and the dynamics underneath this that are going on? And then we have to decide what that means for us as a couple, right? Are we going to be able to stay together? Are we not going to be able to stay together? And are we then going to be able to create a new sexual story together that is different than the one that we've been living in, that's really been so directed and come out of our childhoods and our childhood trauma and all of that kind of stuff? So there's a big question there to be looked at about, can we do that together? So to do that, you need some really good help and support in terms of really looking at and understanding what has been going on in your relationship, what's been going on sexually in your relationship, what are these dynamics really about for all of you, and understanding not just your partner's sexual story, but also your sexual story. So let me just say this, right? We've talked about the things that are going on with a cheating partner when they're avoiding sex in the relationship today. But I don't want to end this before saying that it's very easy as a betrayed partner to get really fixated on what's happening with my significant other sexually, what's going on with them, because the wound is sexual, right? Because the betrayal is sexual. It can be really easy to sort of focus over there and focus on what's going on with them sexually. However, you need to not stay there, right? You want to also be thinking about, what is my sexual story? What has shaped me? Who am I? And what do I want to do with my story? How do I want to rewrite my own story so that it is better for me, right? So that it is good for me, so that I get to enjoy what I want to enjoy and the kind of relationships and sexual pleasure and connection that I really want. So I want you to, definitely understand more about your partner from this, but I also want you to really be thinking about you and who you are and what's going on for you sexually. Okay, so if you have not done a call with us to talk to us about our Braving Hope program, the 12-week coaching program, we do a ton of work in there around sexuality. So we do a lot of work helping you look at your sexual story, what's gone on in your relationship, how have you been injured, because everybody has been injured. Everybody that has experienced sexual betrayal has been injured around their sexuality. So we help you really take a look at that, and a deep dive into the injury, and then a deep dive into healing your sexuality as well. So if you haven't done a call with us to really think about whether it'd be a good time for you to be in Braving Hope and doing that kind of work, then look below the video. Melissa will post a link and to schedule a call with us, and we'll get on the phone and talk with you and see if it's a good fit for you, okay? All right, until next time, bye.